How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another reaction video. We have American cities versus European cities. What's the difference by the channel Geography Geek. As always, links to the original video will be in the description section down below. And we're going to jump into it and find out what the difference is between American cities and European cities right here. Let's get it.
The United States and Europe both have large urban populations and deep cultural ties, but their respective cities have some distinct differences. For
Oh, yeah.
starters, there is a significant age gap between European and American cities. When Europeans first arrived in the Americas in the late 15th and early 16th centuries, there were as many as 10 million natives living in what is today the United States. But the natives were not concentrated in large urban settlements like the civilizations in what is today Mexico and Central and South America. If there had been, you can only speculate on what would have happened to them. There are some exceptions, though. The oldest continuous settlements in the United States belong to natives and are located in the southwest United States.
Yep.
These settlements were founded around 1100 AD, but they generally have never hosted more than a few thousand people. The largest known native settlement in the United States hosted as many as 18,000 natives. This city, called Cahokia, was located in what is today the state of Illinois, and just minutes from the modern-day city of St. Louis.
I did not know that. Illinois is my neighboring state. I live in Indiana. Very interesting. So it's close to St. Louis. So it's on the other side of Illinois. Yeah, very cool.
But Cahokia was abandoned by the year 1350. The 10 largest cities in the United States, on average, were settled around the early to mid 18th century, while Europe's 10 largest cities are hundreds and sometimes thousands of years older.
Oh, yeah.
Europe's 10 largest cities by population are on average larger than American cities when counting the residents within city limits. Out of Europe's 10 largest cities by population, none have less than 2 million people.
Jeez. Decent size. And that's a huge, massive thing there in the center. I don't even know what that is, but that is huge.
But in the United States, 6 of its top 10 have less than 2 million people.
Oh, wow.
European cities also have a higher population density. Out of Europe's 10 most populated cities, only 3 have a density of less than 10,000 people per square mile. St. Petersburg, Russia, Kiev, Ukraine, and
Not lately.
Rome, Italy. The city with the highest density is Paris, with 53,000 people per square mile, nearly twice as many people as the United States' densest city, New York, with 28,000 people per square mile.
Hold on, let me hear that again.
United States density 3,000 people per square mile, nearly twice as many people as the United States' densest city, New York, with 28,000 people per square mile.
Huh.
After New York City, it drops off pretty quickly. The second most populated city in the U.S., Los Angeles, has 8,500 people per square mile. Chicago, 12,000 people per square mile. Houston, 3,500 people per square mile. And Phoenix, 3,100 people per square mile. The differences in European and U.S. cities' populations and densities are largely due to American suburbs. People are living outside of city limits and in homes instead of multi-story structures. These suburbs initially came about because of the train. They then exploded with the wider use of the car.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say because of the car for sure. Yeah. Kind of messed up cities in general. I did some other reactions on why cities here, are different. It's by Not Just Bikes channel, actually. So, yeah, check that out.
And cheap fuel that powered them. Land outside of American cities was also cheap, making homes affordable for the middle class. Chicago is often credited with inventing the suburb. After the fire of 1874,
Really?
the city banned the construction of wood buildings. So speculators built cheap wooden homes as fast as they could just outside of Chicago for the 100,000 people that were just left homeless. After World War II, the federal government started guaranteeing loans that required 20% or less for a down payment and loan lengths as long as 30 years. Before this, it was common to have to make a 50% down payment with loan lengths as short as 5 to 10 years.
Jeez.
These new loans increased the amount of people that could purchase a home, but these loans had more favorable terms for new construction compared to existing housing since the government did not want to back a loan on a house that may have issues. This meant it was easier to get a new home in the suburbs than a property close to the city center.
That just looks crazy, though. I mean, it's just all those boxes. It just looks like boxes. I mean, it's all the same, just mundane.
which was typically older. However, African Americans were often discriminated against when it came to these loans, so few were able to move to the suburbs. While mortgage discrimination has improved significantly, the discrimination that occurred from the 40s through the 60s contributed to generational poverty, and it has had a lasting impact on the geography of American cities. African Americans
Interesting. So they wouldn't. The African Americans were harder to get the loans. So that would make sense why there's a lot more African Americans in like the dense cities here than the suburbs. Like so that. So it's even though it's been from the 40s and 60s. I mean, like you said, it still carries over to today. Very interesting. Very interesting.
and it has had a lasting impact on the geography of American cities. African Americans are still less likely to be living in the suburbs than whites, though the demographics are slowly changing. Today, more African Americans actually live in the suburbs at 39% than within city limits at 36%.
Nice.
The mass exodus in many of these cities, often referred to as white flight, led to severe urban decay. Residential buildings were abandoned, leading to local businesses shutting their doors due to less customers, which resulted in job losses, which led to poverty and crime, which led to more people leaving. This cycle continues in many cities today, while others have seen an urban revival in the last couple of decades, as many young professionals move back to the city. However, where wealthier people in the United States tend to live in the suburbs, in Europe, wealthier individuals are more likely to live in the city center. Take a look at this map
Big change. Big. I mean, that's a big drastic difference right there.
of the London Underground, which shows the average income of the neighborhoods that use each stop. The highest incomes are at the center of the city, and the lowest incomes are at the farthest stops from the center.
Really.
Speaking of public transportation, Europe's public transportation systems are usually thought of as superior to the United States, with a few exceptions like New York City. Because of the suburbs, U.S. cities are too spread out, and buses and trains can't stop at every block to pick everyone up. If they did, it would run extremely slow. When it comes to roads, both the United States
It's a
and
lot of
Europe have
roads.
extensive major road networks. But in the United States, large roads often run right through its cities instead of up to it. While this may make sense in trying to quickly travel from state to state or city to city, it is often criticized for splitting neighborhoods and disrupting local communities. Another thing
Yep.
that separates European and US cities are the amount of skyscrapers. United States cities generally have more skyscrapers. Out of 50 cities in the world with the most skyscrapers, only 2 are in Europe: Moscow, Russia, with 57 skyscrapers, and Frankfurt, Germany, tied for 50th with 17. The United States has 11 cities in the top 50, with the most going to New York City with 287 skyscrapers.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
When European cities do have skyscrapers, they tend to have a section designated for them, away from their historic city center, like La Défense, a business district which is actually a few miles outside of Paris itself. The
Okay.
skyscraper was first born in the United States in the late 19th century,
In
but
Chicago, I
first in
think.
Chicago and later in New York City. The United States took pride in their large structures, seeing them as a symbol of their prosperity and power. Europe, on the other hand, already had established historic buildings and public spaces that left little room for large new structures. They were also resistant to what could be considered American. After the destruction of European
I don't
cities
blame
in the
them.
Second World War, Europe had the chance to build whatever they wanted. They could redesign their cities around the car as American cities were starting to, and now had room to build skyscrapers. But Europe chose not to. Europe had an overwhelming desire to build their cities back to the way they were before the war and to preserve their unique cultures and way of life.
I'm glad they did too, because it looks so much cooler over there from what I've saw in the videos. Very, very cool. I'm glad. And there's some exceptions. I think Rotterdam, right, has a lot of international or like a lot of more modernization in the skyscrapers and stuff. But yeah, most of it is. But then again, Rotterdam, I mean, there wasn't nothing left after the bombing. So yeah.
The city of Brussels also played a role in the rest of Europe protecting its urban landscape. The city of Brussels had a laissez faire approach to urban planning in the 1960s to the 1980s. Structures that were often generic and didn't fit in with Brussels' historic city landscape were put all over the city. The rest of Europe took notice and became concerned a similar randomness of structures could be placed all over their respective cities. Zoning laws that protected Europe's historic districts and structures were then passed across the continent.
Nice.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe for other geography related topics.
Yeah, because it doesn't match. Like when you go back here, it shows England, right? Right here. That doesn't match. You got old historical stuff right here. Then you got like these crazy, like more modern whatever. It just doesn't look right. But yeah. All right, man. You guys take care. Have a super fun, awesome day. And if you enjoy this, hit like, hit subscribe, and take care. I'll see you in the next one.